This pattern is called the Tinselled Woodcock, and for this fly I'm using a size 14 dry fly hook. For the silk I'm using a vintage spool of orange Purcells. For the body I'm using the fur taken from a fox's ear. For the hackle I'm using a woodcock overcovert. For the rib I'm using a fine gold braid. And for the head I'm using a single strand of peacock herl. Now to dress the fly, come in with your tying silk and catch it down with nice tight touching turns immediately behind the eye of the hook. Now come in with your gold braid and again catch that in with a couple of nice tight turns of silk. Once you've got it mounted in, now bring your silk in tight touching turns down the hook shank to a point somewhere between the point of the hook and the end of the barb. Now taking your fox ear fur, just tease out some nice long fibres and dub it onto your silk. The fur has a nice long staple, so it's quite easy to dub and you don't need any wax. Now in tight touching turns, bring your dubbed silk back up the hook shank to form the body of the fly. I'm a bit shy on the fur here, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. There we go. And I'll continue to dub the fly. Now taking my gold braid, it's just twisted a bit there. I'm going to now form a nice symmetrical rib to the fly. Once you're happy with a number of turns of braid, come in with your tying silk and just chop it down with a couple of nice tight turns on top, followed by one tight turn in front. Now take your fly tying scissors and cut off the braid. Trim any waste bits of dubbing you have. And now we prepare our hackle. And to do that we simply just stroke back those hackle fibres, exposing a small tip. Now come in with your scissors and just trim that tip down to a more manageable length. And now mount it on the hook with a few nice tight turns of silk. Taking your hackle and your hackle pliers, and now we're ready to hackle the fly. Traditionally this pattern is quite heavily hackled, so we can come in with a good 4 or 5 turns of hackle, just to make it a nice, bushy, buggy looking fly. If you got any hackle fibres in the way, just simply brush them out of the way. There we go. Now taking the tying silk, we come in again with a couple of nice tight turns on top and one directly in front of the hackle stalk. Trim off the waste end of stalk And now we prepare our peacock herl for the head. Simply just trim off the brittle tip and mount it in with 2 or 3 nice tight turns of silk. There we go. Now to disguise the silk in front of the herl head, simply come in with a black marker and just mark the silk. This hides it nicely on the finished fly. Now taking your peacock herl in your fingers, start to form the head of the fly, again in nice touching turns of herl. And as I say, this is a nice buggy looking fly, so you can afford to take more turns than you would normally take. Once you're happy with the makeup of the head, just come in with your tying silk and trap it down with a couple of nice tight turns of silk, and then the obligatory one in front. Take your scissors and just trim off the end of the peacock herl, and now with your whip finish tool form a nice small neat whip finish. Tighten it up and give it a nice good pull. There we go. Bring the hook eye with your fingernail and just trim up those hackle fibres. And there you have the tinselled woodcock.